Did you know that 90% of the world's millionaires invest in real estate? Well, I'm Angel with the Academy Presents Real Estate Investing Rocks, and I'm here to help you if you want to go for your piece of that pie. Angel with the Academy Presents Real Estate Investing Rocks, and today we are joined by Mr. Karl Sona. He is a co-founder of Streamlined Podcasts, and I am so excited because guess what, guys? This is who we use, and they are awesome. So they do an amazing job helping us just get everything out there and taking out all of my oh, yay, wow, and all of those other weird things that I do that take away from the from the storyline, from the podcast, from the info that needs to go out. So these guys make me look way more magical than I actually am. So I sound way more magical.
Angel, you were too nice. Thank you for having me, though. I've been looking forward to this for a while.
Yeah, it's really cool. I kind of knew I wanted to do something for quite a while, and then last December, when I had some medical issues going on, because I was teaching middle school and I had to go on FMLA, it was kind of this realization of I can't stay in this environment anymore. It's not doing good things for me. And so honestly, there wasn't a doctor in town that was going to release me to go back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a really tough decision because I love teaching.
What grade were you teaching?
I was teaching 8th.
Oh, wow.
And I had rolled up I had taught them in 7th grade. And so I had rolled up with them to 8th grade, but it was a very ethnic school, and a lot of poverty. So, those kids, they really know if you're real or not really fast.
Oh yeah, they'll check you at the door, right?
And here I am, this little white girl that graduated from Baylor, and they didn't think we could ever possibly have anything in common. But I don't know. There was some really awesome relationships forged there, and it's funny now because like my very first year would have been like 3 years ago now, but boys grow a lot between like 7th grade and freshman year of high school. So
it's
now
Now
when I'm in town and I see one of my old boys, they're like, 6'4", and they're huge, and they're like, Miss Williams.
That's hilarious. Super deep voices, a little bit of peach fuzz coming out every which way as they're trying to like connect their beard. I remember those years weren't all that too far in the past for me. So it's an interesting time. It's an interesting time. I would have loved to have you as an 8th grade teacher, though. You look like you probably were the bomb.
Unfortunately, that's probably one of the reasons why I'm not there anymore. I don't fit the mold the same way.
I feel like you don't fit like a lot of molds, which is probably your superpower.
Maybe.
I remember the first time I spoke with you about like editing and real estate investing. Like your energy was just all over the place. I was like, wow, this is not your typical real estate investor. You know what I mean? Because I work with a lot of these guys and girls, and they're usually a little bit more buttoned up and polished. You had the purple hair at the time, and I was like, wow, I like this one. I want to help her. I want to get to know her.
It's okay to be different.
Yeah, it is 100%. I think we all need to do a better job of leaning into what makes us different. And something I struggle with a lot in life, right? Because the way we're wired to sort of just fit with the crowd, right? Don't raise too much attention to yourself. Don't step out of line. Don't go do that apartment deal. That's not for you. And it's like, what are we really doing here if not just living somebody else's story? So I love when people can embrace their differences.
Yeah, I want to, like Jason and I, my husband and I, we talk a lot about, is what we're doing, are we crushing the spirit of our children? Are we pushing them into, in school and in different organizations, are we pushing them to fit in with everybody else? And having a special needs child, we need our girls to be very independent, because when Jason and I are gone, they're going to have to advocate for their brother. And that takes a certain kind of person. You have to be strong, and you have to be certain, and you have to have that independence. And so he and I have talked a lot about, do we need to be pushing her to make straight A's? Do we need to be pushing her to make A's and B's? Does it really matter?
Is what she's being taught what's going to help her be successful later on? And so
those are all great questions. I mean, I'm not a parent yet, but like that's the kind of stuff that you have to like do mental ping pong with. Like, first of all, kudos and props to you guys for thinking about that kind of stuff. I think that ultimately demonstrates just a lot of courage, right? Like working to check yourself and working to sort of be hands off so that you can allow your kid to develop into who they are as an individual without like trying to force them one way or the other.
it may be the death of
I
me.
can't imagine how difficult that is.
Yeah, she's only, our oldest is 12, and literally it may be the death of me.
Yeah. Well, she's lucky. I mean, she gets to see you guys as just like rock stars for parents, doing all these different things, creating, helping people. So if anything, what better example, right? What better example? Yeah.
Well, we're trying, but it's, I mean, I can't imagine what it must be like for her. She's been like full on straight up CPR certified since she was like 7.
Oh, wow. Because of her little brother?
Yeah.
Wow.
He's at a higher incidence of sudden unexplained death when he sleeps.
Oh my.
So he sleeps with a monitor on his mattress. It actually serves several purposes. Number one, if he were to quit breathing in the middle of the night, it would let us know. It would alert us and we could go administer CPR if necessary. But the other thing it lets us know is when he's up and roaming the house. So, it's helpful. But I just can't imagine. And maybe she doesn't even feel that different. I mean, it's our normal. And she may not be able to remember not having that burden on her.
Yeah, I mean, everything is relative, right? Like what is normal anyways? Like for real.
Yeah.
And so I think that if I'm you guys, and again, I'm not a parent, so this is completely unsolicited advice. I think that I just let her, come into her own relative to the environment that she's growing up in. I think that it's going to provide her some very unique perspectives as she becomes a young adult. Very soon will be a teenager into adulthood. To your point, I mean, the level of responsibility that she's had to like learn to at such an early age, that makes a person strong. I mean, I remember my parents took a big gap between me and my 2 little sisters. There's like a 10 and 12-year age difference between me and the little ones. Oh, wow. And my dad, my parents are immigrants of this country. My dad ended up getting a job out in the Midwest in Wisconsin when they had initially settled in Maryland. And, he unfortunately had to leave me and my pregnant mom behind. So I was like, the little man of the house. I was running with mom to the doctor's appointments. When the little ones came, I was burping and getting puked up on and doing laundry at the age of 8 or 9. And so it's always given me just a sense of independence, which is a very, I think, reassuring thing as a human being. The fact that you can take care of yourself, the fact that like, you got some street smarts too. So, not saying that's going to be your little girl, but
well, I mean, that was one of the reasons why I took her to school with me.
Yeah.
Our campus, like our, I guess, address designated campus is a completely different kind of school. But I took her to school with me because.
Oh, to the hood. Let's just call it what it is. It's okay.
because I wanted her to see
yeah.
what the world is really like.
Yeah.
Because like when my husband and I first got together, I would literally say he was the smartest dumb person I knew. He had his PhD.
He was sheltered.
He had his PhD in chemical engineering when he was 26. He's got book smarts that you would not believe. But the common sense, the street smarts have been built up over time.
Oh man, well fortunately he's got you watching his back.
And he's gonna have Julianne too, because that was one of my things was I wanted her, and I feel like the school where she's at is a much more realistic representation of the world's population anyway.
Okay.
And you're gonna have to learn how to get along with everybody, not just people that are like you.
Amen. That's one of my superpowers actually. Like I just have this ability to connect with people of all walks of life. And I think it's because during my formative years, not only did I have a little bit more responsibility out of the gates, but right when I was in 7th grade, actually, you were a 7th grade teacher, I was moved from a very diverse and ethnic population in the suburbs of DC to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which is like one of the most segregated cities out there. And we ended up moving to a suburb just outside of Milwaukee. My parents put me in this Catholic school, and I'll never, ever forget we had to go to like a mass is what they call it in the Catholic church. Exactly. Like right before school
my first year.
Exactly. Right before school started the next day, and they had us like leave with our class. And I'll never forget like standing up with my new 7th grade class and like turning the face up to this congregation. And it's just a sea of white people just like smiling up at me. Like we were the only African-American family there. And I mean, I tell you what, as I look back on those days now as an adult, I'm like, wow, like that's where I really learned to find and form and cultivate and grow relationships with people that, you know, don't look like me, have completely different home situations than that sort of thing. So I've always really cherished that. I love to have a very diverse set of people around me. I think it's how we grow. I mean, that's how we're challenged. And that's how we get, you know, the real benefits out of this life, right? Tapping into people that don't necessarily have the same situation as we do. So,
well, and I think it helps others too, because like one of the conversations I had with my students, because I'm not going to lie, they tried to play the race card on me a few times. And I said,
oh yeah.
And I told them, I said, you know what, guys, let's talk about discrimination. So let me tell you what it's like when I walk down the aisle at Sam's Club with my son in his little wheelchair, and I'm watching parents grab their kids' hands and yank them out of the way like they're going to catch what my son has. Let's talk discrimination. Wow. And from that moment forward, anytime we got a new kid in class and that kid would try and play that card, the other guys would be like, "No, man, just sit down. She ain't like that."
Wow, that's real. That's real.
Yeah.
Holy crap. What does that do to you as a mother? Like, does that just bring out like your Sasha Fierce, like mama bear comes out, the claws extend, and you're just like looking to protect your little boy? Or are you just kind of like, hey, you know, let them look. Like, we're not going to let this change who we are or how we view ourselves. Like, what is that like?
I mean, it hurts, but it just becomes part of what happens. And so you smile, and when the little kids smile back, and you know, you touch your son to make people know, you know, hey, it's not contagious.
Yeah.
And then sometimes there'll be a kid there at Sam's. We only have one Sam's Club in Wichita Falls. And one time there was a little girl that was like, "Mama, it's Anson. Mama, it's Anson," because she went to the same school as him. And she remembered his name, and she ran up to him. And I guess they'd been in music class. I think Anson he's in a contained class, but I think he goes to music and to PE. And she recognized him, and he smiled when she walked up. And so he recognized her, and that was really cool. And it made me very proud of that mother for instilling in her child that it is okay to be different. And the world is made up of a ton of different people. So.
Yeah. Wow.
But yeah. Wow. But I still don't really believe in mainstreaming.
I'm not sure I do either.
Well, so here's the thing: is like we could ask for mainstreaming for Anson, and we could fight for it, and the law is on our side. But Anson's 10; he's in diapers. He has maybe 150 words, and they're not always words that mean what he thinks they mean. They just happen to be words that he knows, and as he gets frustrated, he just starts grasping onto words that he knows and remembers. And as a teacher, I cannot imagine basically being forced to have a classroom of typical children and then a child like Anson too in the classroom, because he'll just get up and just swipe everything off the counter, swipe everything off the table, or he'll just slap at people. And he's not malicious. He's not trying to hurt people. But it's just, it's something, I don't even know if he has control over himself. If it's just like an involuntary thing that happens, but I can't imagine that. And to me, that doesn't help anyone.
Yeah, it almost sounds like I don't know if this is the wrong thing to say, but it almost sounds like you'd be setting him up for failure, trying to get him to integrate in a normal classroom. And I hate that word normal, but like, you know, with kids that, typical. Thank you. That's way better than normal. Yeah. So that would be hard, but like, I'm sure there's a part of you as a parent too, that just wants so badly for your kid to just be another kid, to have a typical childhood, but
he doesn't know any different.
Maybe you don't want that. Maybe exactly. He doesn't know any different. So I don't know. I look at it as just like mental ping pong game where it's like, what is the right side? Right. And I don't think you're ever wrong for feeling a bunch of different emotions as you think about these different things, you know?
No, and that's
part of the experience, part of your experience.
Yeah, and I've told people too, and like even people that don't even have issues like this, if you're having a bad day, have your bad day. Screw people who say you shouldn't have a bad day, or you shouldn't be upset, you shouldn't mourn, you shouldn't be sad. Man, screw you. Take whatever time it takes.
I've been one of those people. I used to never allow myself to have a bad day. It just felt like the wrong thing to do. I didn't like the way I felt when I'd be having a difficult day. Like we're on the topic of being a kid. Let's say, I grew up in a very strict African household. So like getting like a B was like a bad day. Like it had to be A's. Yeah. And I can remember like coming home with a B or whatever and just being in a pissed off mood, but trying to escape it and just trying to keep up like a face of like being brave and like, no, it's all good. And like, I think over enough time, you just start to exhaust yourself with that, and you also start to kind of get out of touch with reality. That's what it was for me. So I've actually, not only does it feel good to just be in a bad mood sometimes, but it's also like refreshing, and it creates a way better experience when the days do ultimately get bright again, right? Like when you're having a great day, like in a legitimate way, it helps you appreciate where you just came from. So I think embracing all the feels is something that we all ought to, try to lean in towards a little bit more of as well.
Yeah, of course, my friend Jeff Holst, he'll be like, no, I only have good days. But he talks about this reticular awareness. There we go.
Reticular activating system.
Okay, yes.
Your RAS.
So he's like, basically you train yourself to only have good days. And I was like, which I guess I kind of get it, because like when we got our Jeep, all I see is Jeeps on the road now. So I get it.
Yes.
But
I'd argue it from the standpoint of training yourself to only have good days. Again, I think that's a little unrealistic, right? Like inevitably something bad is going to happen. And I'm not a cynical person at all. Like I'm actually a very natural optimist, but I'm also
like
a realist.
Jeff had leukemia. He still says he hasn't had a bad day.
Yeah. So I think I would reframe that and I would say, all right, like, let me feel the feels. Let me feel the negative emotion, whatever that may be, anger, frustration, sadness. But how can I like create a little bit of space between that emotion, right? And see how it's sort of a means towards something greater, something more positive. That's the way I think about it. But yeah, for me, I'm over those days of just trying to like wash it off. Like, I'm good. Like, no, you're not good, bro. And it's okay.
What it was I read something about how, you tell your kids when they're crying, quit that crying. Don't you cry. But as an adult, do you cry? Yes. Do you tell yourself, quit that crying? You don't need to be crying. No, you cry. So when did it happen that we began to tell children that it's not okay to have those emotions?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's
probably the day that I kind of decided that, you know what, if you're having a bad day, just have a bad day.
Yeah. Especially for like a lot of like young boys, depending on the environment that they're brought up in.
Because they're told not to have it, not show anything.
Right. And that could really like screw up a lot of young men, well into their adulthood. Lewis Howes is a big podcaster that has a show called The School of Greatness. He talks a lot about this. He wrote a book called Mask of Masculinity. He's like this big former ex-pro athlete, and he'd gone through some pretty traumatic stuff as a kid, but he was sort of taught to just like shove it in. And it led to a lot of anger in his adulthood. It led to him just like lashing out uncontrollably. And it wasn't until he started like doing the work and talking about some of these emotions that had been suppressed that he found a way through it. So I'm like, hey man, listen, everything that we feel is energy, and energy needs a place to go. So the quicker we can find a way to sit with it and let it flow out, the better. If we stuff it in, we hold it in, it's going to find a way to surface in one way or another. It just will.
Wow, that's really insightful.
Yeah.
Wow, because we internalize a lot, I think, as a maybe as Western culture. I don't know what it's like in other places. This is all I know.
I mean, hey, my parents are from Southwest Africa, and I can see in both of my parents, relative to their upbringing, like there's also a lot of internalization there too. And it can lead to some challenges if you don't find a healthy way to process what it is you're feeling or to process what it is you've experienced, you know?
Wow.
So, yeah.
So we started out really deep here.
We really did. How did we get here, Angel?
Don't know. It's because I don't have a set of questions that I go by.
But that's honestly one of the reasons why I was also really looking forward to this. I know that we've been trying to connect for a while. I've just been like crazy busy as the rest of the world is, but I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait to come on and do Angel's show because I know she's just so spunky and it could go a million and one different directions. And I'm game. I'm game for all the different directions it could go.
Spunky's better than all over the place and totally and 100% uncoordinated.
Well, it's kind of like when you took my normal and made it typical, right?
It's the words. Oh my Lord, there's so many proper words out there that
I know.
It just blows me away sometimes.
Yeah, it's an issue because sometimes we are trying to be so politically correct that we lose the ability to just say how it is we're truly feeling. It's like it's like this whole dance of being an adult.
Yeah.
You know, what's the proper grammatical way to put how I'm feeling versus just saying what it is. So sometimes words can work against you.
Just saying how it is tends to get you in trouble sometimes too.
True that. Look at Trump.
Well, I don't even think about it sometimes and words just come out. I think part of that's being a huge extrovert because I don't always think about what I'm saying before it comes out of my mouth. But I just say things. And I remember one time, my brother and sister moved in with us in 2010 for some reasons. Because I'm the oldest of 5. My next brother under me is 8 years younger than me. And then my next sibling is 13 years younger than me. The next one is 18 years younger than me. And the last one is 23 years younger than me.
All same mom, same dad?
Same mom, different dad.
Okay.
But the youngest 2 had moved in with us. And my little sister asked me one day, she was like, how do you know that Jason loves me? And she was maybe 15, 16. And I looked at her and I said, because he considers you. She was like, what? Like, when he makes a decision that involves all of us, he considers you as well. And she was like, that is the most logical way anyone has ever described love to me.
Wow. She's not wrong. I've honestly never even heard it described that way. But as you tell that story, that makes all the sense in the world. Because love is a tough one sometimes. It just feels so arbitrary. And then again, it's one of those other words while we're on the topic of words that we just throw out there and it has a bunch of different meanings, right? Like, oh, I love Cinnamon Toast Crunch, but I love you as my partner. Yeah. Like those are 2 different things.
Yeah, so but it was really cool.
He considers you. I like that.
It was really cool though that I didn't think about it. It just came out of my mouth.
That's yeah. And it
was just like,
that's cool.
Oh,
that was your heart talking
about that one.
I love that. Look at you.
Yeah. So kind of backing up a little bit. We did our very first summit in March of this year. Mm-hmm. At the beginning of all of this craziness that we now call COVID. Wow. And so, I had left teaching for medical reasons in December, and I was talking to Dan Hanford, and I was like, hey, what's the difference between a 1-day, a 2-day, and a 3-day event? He's like, oh, it's just coordinating people. I'm like, okay, then I guess I'm doing a 3-day event. And so just out of the gate, 3-day event. I don't know what I was thinking, but again, it's like what I was saying before. I don't always think. I just do. And during that summit, I said, we're going to be starting up our weekly episodes. I don't remember if I called them episodes or shows, or I don't remember what I called them. I wasn't calling them podcasts because it wasn't a podcast. And so I think I called them shows or episodes. But I said, we're going to be starting those up in April. And this was March. And April's rolling through, and Jason's like, hey, you said you were going to be doing this, and you're not doing this. And I missed it by 1 day. I started my very first episode May 1st. And literally the only thing I knew how to do, and kind of still, is start and stop video. And I don't always remember to start the video. So I have a little Post-it note that says record, and then it has sound on underneath it, because one time we started an episode and I'm like, I can't hear you. Can you hear me? And they're like, thumbs up. We can hear you. We can hear you. I couldn't hear them. And we go to so we're like, okay, let's go try this other one. And so we tried the other person's Zoom room and still couldn't hear them. So we came back and one of the people that I was interviewing was like, is your sound on? And I was like, oh my God, I am the dumbest person in the world. My sound was off.
Believe it or not, that's like a very common mistake. I've made that one at least a handful of times. And I used to have the same little Post-it like right above my camera. So I would have to be like, oh my God, would you mind like scheduling another time for us to just do what we just did? Because I forgot to hit record. So, hey, listen, if you're not making some like idiotic mistakes like that out of the gates, you're probably starting too late. So it's all good, girl.